Well, good morning, church. You didn't know I could sing so well, did you? Ray has been accused of being my twin brother. Fortunately, he's a little better looking. Get him out of here. We're in the midst of a series of messages on the temptations of Christ, and this is week 4 of our 5-week series, and we're just now getting to the second temptation, at least as Luke numbers them. It takes me a long time to say a little thing. That's all I can say about that. But we discovered what I hope are some very important principles for life in how we can handle temptation. And we discovered some truths such as when it comes to temptation, there is always more at stake than we think. In the moment, we think it's just about this particular thing. But the reality is, with every temptation, what is at stake is your future. And what is at stake is your family. And what is at stake is your faith. We discovered that, right? We've learned that well, so we memorized this. Can you say it with me? Temptation, you will not steal my future. You will not steal my family. You will not steal my faith. There we go. And we also learned that the real issue is one of trust. Can I really trust God? Is He really there for me? Is God who He says He is? Does God love me as much as He says He does? Is God as clued into my needs and my desires as I need for Him to be? The issue is, can God be trusted? And we learned that temptation is always a test of your faith, not just your self-control. The issue is not as simple as doing a thing and wondering if you're going to get caught. The issue is, how big is your God? And can God be trusted? And we learned this critical truth. If you don't trust God, you won't obey Him. And if you don't obey Him, there will come a time when you don't believe in Him. There's more at stake than simply the decision that I am being tempted to make. This is why I believe one of the best habits that you can get into every morning is to get up every morning and get on your knees somewhere and cry out to your Heavenly Father and say, I believe. So let's get back to Jesus in the desert. Here's our text. And He, this is Satan, and He led him, that's Jesus, led him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, I'll give you all this domain and its glory, for it has been handed over to me, and I give it to whomever I wish. Therefore, if you worship before me, it shall all be yours. And Jesus answered and said to him, it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God and serve Him only. Now let me tell you a story. It's a true story. And sadly, it's a story that I'm not very fond of. One of the more difficult responsibilities I had as an adjunct prof at St. Louis Christian College was reading my morning mail and emails from students and former students and some future students. And I take particular interest and responsibility for all of my students. Some time ago, I received a letter from one of my former students who is in a penitentiary in New York. He's serving from 10 to 20 years for attempted rape. He was a Christian. And he asked me if I would send him a book that he didn't have access to in the prison, and I gladly responded to his request. But his letter deeply disturbed me because this young man had been a student of mine. When he graduated from SLCC, he had left with great gifts and great vision. He pastored 2 different churches, both of which, humanly speaking, were successful congregations. The second church, which I knew better, he demonstrated the gift of evangelism, and many of the people in that church were led to Christ as a result of his witness. He was a careful student of the Scriptures. And there were those in the congregation who testified that again and again as he stood to speak, they could sense the power and the presence of God as he spoke. He had a discipling ministry, and he left his thumbprint upon the men of that congregation. In fact, when his crime was discovered and he had admitted his guilt, men in that congregation raised over $20,000 for his defense. And now he's a prisoner in a penitentiary in New York. And in one dark hour of temptation, you see, he had fallen into an abyss. He ruined his reputation. He destroyed his ministry, and he left an ugly stain on the testimony of Christ in that community. When I read the letter and knew what had happened, I found myself wrestling with all kinds of questions and emotions. What happens in a person's life? Who does that? What went through his mind? What was it that caused him to turn his back on all that he had given his life to? I realized as I was asking those questions that I was not simply asking about him, but about myself. Where am I vulnerable? I was asking about men and women who have graduated from Bible college and in some act of disobedience have destroyed the ministry to which they had given themselves. What is it that causes someone to mortgage his ministry to pay the high price of sin? What is it that lures us to destruction? What is it for you? What is it for me? It's a question you face. You're a Christian. Temptation dogs your path and trips you up at every turn. The question you must face someplace in your life is, how does the tempter do his work? How does he come to us? How does he destroy us? And here in this temptation of Jesus, I think we get an answer. Satan essentially comes to Jesus and offers him everything. Everything. What if I offered you everything? Everything you ever wanted. And all you have to do is fall down and give up a little nod in my direction. What if I could do that for you? Come on, we can do this in private. No one has to know. Just slide on over here just in this moment, just in this instance. It would only take a minute. Worship me a little. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. No one will ever know. Just you and me. And you get everything. Everything your heart desires. Can I tell you, I've been watching these young Disney starlets for a while from afar, just watching because I have a little girl and I'm an overprotective father. But I watch these girls one after another, sweet, innocent, talented, attractive, from loving families, and if the stories are true, from committed Christian families. And I watch how one after another, after another, after another, self-destructs. Have you noticed that? But it's only after they've been given everything. Have you noticed that? And so Christina Aguilera trades in her innocence, and Britney Spears just goes nuts. And her 16-year-old sister is pregnant. And Lindsay Lohan trades her talent for drugs and is in and out of rehab and is now apparently facing another felony charge. And Beyonce trades singing in the church choir and thanking God for her success to cursing and stripping. And Miley Cyrus trades in her faith to live with her boyfriend. And Vanessa Hudgens, after testifying to her solid faith values, texts pornographic pictures to her boyfriend. And Demi Lovato is now apparently in rehab battling some sort of substance abuse. There's always more at stake than what you think. Always more at stake than what you think in the moment. And it's really an issue of trust, of faith, of character. Now listen. Most people, you and me included, spend their lives trying to make their heart's fondest dreams come true. Isn't that what life is all about? The pursuit of happiness? We search endlessly for ways to acquire the things we desire, and we're willing to sacrifice much to achieve them. We never imagine that getting our heart's desire might be the worst thing that could ever happen to us. And our desires might be good things, godly things. But the temptation is to trade godly values, godly vocations, godly wisdom to get them in an illegitimate way. So can we talk? It happens, doesn't it? What's the issue here? May I suggest to you that the issue here is one I have been pointing to all along, that the issue is having a right orientation toward God. That is really ultimately the issue. In the very first message in this series, I said, your life, my life, all of life is about the greatness of God. That's what your life is about. But our problem is that each and every one of us, as C.S. Lewis said so long ago, each and every one of us is an idol factory. This is why I think in the book of Romans, Paul wrote that one of the worst things God can do to someone is to give them over to the desires of their hearts. Romans 1, read it. Why would the greatest punishment imaginable be to allow someone to achieve their fondest dream? But there it is. It's right there in the Bible. It's because our hearts fashion these desires into idols. And they may even be good desires. They may even be godly things, but we fashion them into idols and they lead us to self-destruction. See, when we lose perspective, who we are and who God is, and when we lose our center, Christ is to be the center. When we lose perspective, we spin out of control, and self-destruction is the inevitable result. And that's true whether you're a Disney starlet or a pastor or a parent or whatever title you put on yourself. Think with me about how all this works out. I mean, think about who you are and whose you are. Let me ask you something. You like progress? Getting ahead? Are you a goal setter? Are you a trend watcher? Or maybe it's more subtle. Are you interested in just getting ahead? Just getting the next level up, just getting the next job, maybe starting a whole new life adventure with your career or with your family or with your interests, whatever. I mean, you're not just satisfied with the way things are and you want things to be better. Anybody like that? I am. I'm like that. I'd like to see some progress in my life in a lot of areas. And if you have any of that in you, did you know that you get that from God? I mean, that's the image of God in you. Once upon a time, there was nothing, and God said, I'm tired of nothing, I want something. Right? And He created the whole universe. Talk about progress.